We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Seneca. In a time when we've conquered disease, engineered miracles, and digitized our dreams, a quiet epidemic still stalks our souls. Anxiety. It hides behind glowing screens, in sleepless nights, in the unspoken ache of comparison. Despite our progress, something essential has gone missing. We live in a world that has mastered the art of stimulation, but forgotten the science of serenity. But what if the calm we crave lies not in novelty, but in antiquity? What if the keys to peace aren't new inventions, but ancient insights? 2,300 years ago, Epicurus, a Greek philosopher, built a philosophy of pleasure, but not the kind we imagine, not wild indulgence or ecstatic thrill. For him, pleasure meant something quieter, more radical, the absence of pain and fear. His legacy was a garden, his gospel, peace of mind. And perhaps in that forgotten garden is the cure for our modern unrest. He who has peace of mind disturbs neither himself nor others. Epicurus was born in 341 BCE on the island of Samos. By the age of 14, he had already begun questioning the teachings of the world around him. In Athens, he founded his own school, not a marble-pillared academy for elites, but a humble garden. The Garden of Epicurus became a living experiment in simple living, open to women and slaves as well as free men. Here, under olive trees, they rejected superstition and embraced science. They spoke of atoms and void, not gods and fate. They ate simple bread and olives, not grand feasts. Epicurus was not a hermit. He laughed often, wrote hundreds of letters, and cherished his friends above all. "Send me a little cheese," he once wrote, "so that I may have a feast whenever I like." In his life and thought, he redefined what it meant to live well, not to gather wealth or fame, but to remove suffering and cultivate calm. His school was as much a sanctuary as it was a center for inquiry. Unlike the competitive debates of Plato's Academy or Aristotle's Lyceum, the garden prioritized emotional healing over abstract reasoning. Here, philosophy was not a game, it was therapy. Let no one be slow to seek wisdom when he is young, nor weary in the search thereof when he is grown old. Epicurus. By pleasure, we mean the absence of pain in the body and of trouble in the soul. Epicurus. The word pleasure misleads. To modern ears, it sounds like indulgence, rich food, wild parties, sensual thrill. But to Epicurus, pleasure was something far deeper, a state of equilibrium, of wholeness, of ease. He divided pleasure into two types: kinetic pleasures, active, transient pleasures, eating, dancing, drinking; static pleasures, the enduring contentment when needs are satisfied and fears are removed. He believed that the highest pleasure was not ecstasy, but serenity, not sensation, but stillness. The wise man does not devalue the pleasures of the table, but prefers a barley cake eaten in quiet to a feast disturbed by craving. Epicurus. The modern hedonist seeks more, the Epicurean seeks enough. If you wish to be rich, Epicurus said, do not add to your money, but subtract from your desire. This redefinition of pleasure changes everything. It points us not to acquisition, but to liberation. Pleasure for Epicurus is the product of self-knowledge and restraint. Only when we understand our true needs can we fulfill them, and only then can we be free of suffering. Modern behavioral science aligns with this. Studies show that hedonic adaptation, our tendency to quickly return to a baseline of happiness after positive changes, makes the pursuit of high pleasures a treadmill. Simplicity, gratitude, and meaningful connection consistently outperform wealth in generating life satisfaction. Epicurus anticipated this truth. In his world, the richest man is not he who has the most, but he who needs the least. Too many people spend money they haven't earned to buy things they don't want, to impress people they don't like. Will Rogers. Today we swim in abundance, but drown in dissatisfaction. We are told that happiness lies in bigger homes, shinier phones, faster careers. Yet the statistics tell another story. Anxiety and depression rise even as luxury multiplies. We chase happiness like a mirage, always vanishing beyond the next achievement. Epicurus would not be surprised. He warned against vain desires for power, prestige, and wealth beyond what is necessary. These, he said, can never be fulfilled. They breed restlessness, not satisfaction. Vain is the word of a philosopher which does not heal any suffering of man. Epicurus. Modern life, with its algorithms and ads, amplifies desire. Epicurus invites us to lower it. In doing so, he doesn't ask us to live less, but to live more consciously. Our apps, our feeds, our careers all operate on the principle that we are not enough. They feed a cycle of craving, distraction, and burnout. Epicurus, in contrast, offered a quiet revolution. What if peace doesn't come from more, but from less? Minimalism, mindfulness, simplicity, these aren't trends, they're resurrections. Live simply so that others may simply live. Mahatma Gandhi. In a world that screams for more, Epicurus whispers, desire less. And perhaps that whisper is more powerful than the noise. Epicurus's most radical and unsettling claim echoes like a philosophical thunderclap through the ages. Death, he wrote, is nothing to us. This sentence, etched in the letter to Monosius, forms the philosophical bedrock of his tranquil worldview. But how can death, universal, inescapable, and feared by all, be nothing to us? Epicurus reasoned with disarming logic. All good and evil exist in sensation. Death, he claimed, is the cessation of sensation, the end of experience. When we are, death is not, and when death is, we are not. Epicurus. To fear death, then, is to fear something we can never experience. It is the anxiety of non-being, a fear rooted not in reason, but in fantasy and projection. The Roman poet Lucretius, a devout Epicurean, would later echo this with poetic poignancy in De Rerum Naturam. Look back at the eternity before our birth, he wrote, and you will find it is a mirror of the eternity after death. Nothing to fear. This symmetry argument reminds us that the non-existence before we were born didn't trouble us. Why then should we fear the non-existence that follows? Yet the modern world remains shackled by the fear of death. We construct entire industries, insurance, anti-aging products, even cryogenic preservation, rooted in an unspoken refusal to accept mortality. As Ernest Becker wrote in The Denial of Death, the idea of death, the fear of it, haunts the human animal like nothing else. But perhaps it doesn't have to. Michel de Montaigne, heavily influenced by Epicurean thought, wrote, "To practice death is to practice freedom. A man who has learned to die has unlearned how to be a slave." Fear of death, Epicurus insisted, robs us of life itself. It is the anticipation, not the event, that poisons our joy. The wise man neither seeks to escape life nor fears the cessation of life. Epicurus. This was not nihilism, but liberation. Once we release the dread of an unknowable afterlife, we can live fully in the present. It is a philosophical courage, a defiance against the ghost of future non-existence. And the implications for modern mental health are immense. Existential therapists today work with clients specifically on death anxiety. Research shows that confronting death openly, through conversation, meditation, or reflection, can actually increase life satisfaction and reduce depressive symptoms. Mindfulness teachers do not shy away from this truth. You cannot truly live until you are willing to die. Jack Kornfield. By embracing our impermanence, we unlock gratitude, presence, and perspective. Epicurus was not trying to numb us to death, he was waking us up to life. In Epicurus's day, fear of divine wrath permeated daily life. Earthquakes were seen as punishments from Poseidon, diseases as curses from Apollo. Religion, far from offering solace, kept the soul shackled. Epicurus set out to dismantle these metaphysical chains. It is not the man who denies the gods worshipped by the multitude who is impious, but he who affirms of the gods what the multitude believes about them.
He didn't deny the gods entirely. He simply argued they were blissful, indifferent beings, existing in serene detachment, uninvolved in human affairs. No cosmic judge, no punishing deity, no divine hellfire. This was heresy, but it was also emancipation. Lucretius, his poetic disciple, captured the thrill of this intellectual freedom. When human life lay foul before men's eyes, one man, a Greek, dared to lift his mortal eyes against superstition and the gods. And that man was Epicurus. Today, we may not fear Zeus's lightning bolt, but the spirit of superstition survives in new forms. Conspiracy theories, pseudoscience, fear of bad karma, and even spiritual bypassing, where difficult emotions are suppressed under vague cosmic justifications. The remedy, then as now, is rational inquiry. The dread and darkness of the mind cannot be dispelled by the sunbeams of the sun, but only by an understanding of the inner workings of nature. Lucretius. Science not as cold reductionism, but as spiritual liberation, becomes the modern inheritor of Epicurus's project. The more we understand about physics, biology, psychology, the less room there is for irrational terror. Science is not only compatible with spirituality, it is a profound source of spirituality, said Carl Sagan. Indeed, Sagan and other secular thinkers followed Epicurus's trail. Sagan's pale blue dot speaks to the same humility and clarity Epicurus taught. Human life is fragile, temporary, and insignificant to the cosmos, and yet filled with astonishing beauty. So too did Thomas Jefferson, who wrote, "I too am an Epicurean. I consider the genuine doctrines of Epicurus as containing everything rational in moral philosophy." By freeing people from divine fear, Epicurus returned morality to the human scale. Virtue becomes a path to happiness, not a cosmic obligation, but a natural alignment. This detachment from supernatural fear invites us to focus not on punishment or reward from beyond, but on freedom, friendship, and peace of mind in this life. If Epicureanism were a painting, its background would be painted in ataraxia, a soft, still calm that saturates every stroke. Ataraxia, the ancient Greek word for tranquility, a soul untroubled by fear, desire, or confusion. The greatest fruit of self-sufficiency is freedom, Epicurus. This wasn't detachment in the Stoic sense. The Epicurean did not steel themselves against life. Rather, they cultivated a garden of the soul, where calm grew in the soil of understanding. To reach ataraxia, one must unlearn the sources of turmoil. Fear of gods? Dispel it. Fear of death? Disarm it. Desire for riches? Relinquish it. If you wish to be rich, do not add to your money, but subtract from your desires, Diogenes the Cynic. And yet, Epicurus's way was gentler than Diogenes's austerity. He encouraged moderate pleasure, quiet joy, and the refusal to be disturbed by things outside one's control. Do not spoil what you have by desiring what you have not, Epicurus. Modern psychology agrees. The practice of gratitude, noticing and savoring what is already present, has been shown to reduce anxiety, increase happiness, and even improve sleep quality. Ataraxia also resembles flow states, where the mind is completely absorbed and untroubled. It aligns with Buddhist equanimity, where one does not cling to pleasure nor recoil from pain, but experiences the moment fully and without disturbance. The root of suffering is attachment, the Buddha. But Epicurus's ataraxia is not emotionless, It is not the cold void of apathy. It is the warm stillness of inner peace. He wept for lost friends. He laughed freely. He wrote tender letters of affection. His goal was not to feel less, but to fear less, desire less, and thereby feel more. In a digital age flooded with notifications, endless comparisons, and the pressure to do more, ataraxia becomes an act of rebellion. Beware the barrenness of a busy life, Socrates. Epicurus would urge us to create mental space, to slow down, to distinguish real threats from imagined ones, to ask, what am I fearing right now that need not be feared? Ataraxia is the core of mental health. It's what every therapy, meditation, walk in nature, and deep breath is aiming for. The quiet certainty that all is well here and now. While ataraxia is freedom from mental turmoil, Epicurus paired it with a twin, aponia, the freedom from physical pain. Not the ecstatic bliss of sensory indulgence, but the humble, almost invisible joy of simply not hurting. The absence of pain in the body and trouble in the soul is pleasure, Epicurus. Most of us don't notice health until it vanishes. Epicurus invites us to notice its presence, to savor what isn't hurting, what isn't broken, what isn't lacking. This is Epicurean wealth. He wrote, "Thanks be to blessed nature, because she has made necessary things easy to obtain, and those things that are difficult to obtain unnecessary." This sentiment lies at the heart of modern minimalist wellness, focusing not on adding more, but on removing excess, junk food, noise, overscheduling, toxic habits. Aponia begins not with indulgence, but with discernment. It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor, Seneca. Even physical discomfort, Epicurus taught, could be endured with mental clarity. On his deathbed, racked with pain from kidney stones, he wrote, "I was passing a happy day. The recollection of our past conversations was my joy." His mental pleasure outweighed physical pain, a testament to the strength of philosophy. Modern pain therapy echoes this. Cognitive reframing can actually reduce subjective suffering. Pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. Haruki Murakami. In Epicurus's garden, the goal was to live gently with the body, not to worship it nor to neglect it, but to treat it with wisdom. Aponia isn't about avoiding every ache, it's about not amplifying it with fear or excess. The joy of a simple, pain-free moment may not go viral on social media, but it is, quietly, the foundation of peace. At the heart of Epicurean therapy lies a prescription known as the Tetrapharmakos, the four-part cure. 1. Don't fear the gods. 2. Don't fear death. 3. What is good is easy to get. 4. What is terrible is easy to endure. Like a physician of the soul, Epicurus offers this formula to treat humanity's deepest ailments: fear, desire, insecurity, and despair. First, do not fear the gods. They are not vengeful tyrants. They do not smite or punish. They live in bliss, untroubled by our fates. Free yourself from divine anxiety, and you reclaim your agency. We are not punished for our sins, but by them. Elbert Hubbard. Second, do not fear death. It is not an event to experience. It is the absence of experience. Death holds no pain because it holds no you. As the Stoic Marcus Aurelius echoed, death is nothing but a dissolution of the elements. If it doesn't hurt the elements, why should it hurt you? Third, what is good is easy to get. Bread, water, shelter, friendship. These require no fortune, no empire, no lottery win. The pleasures that nourish are modest. The greatest wealth is to live content with little, Plato. Fourth, what is terrible is easy to endure, because either pain is acute and short or chronic and manageable. The terror we attach to it often exceeds the thing itself. He who fears he shall suffer already suffers what he fears. Montaigne. This Tetrapharmakos reads like a mantra of resilience. It is ancient cognitive restructuring, and it remains as powerful today as in 300 BCE. Imagine if this were taught in schools. If every child learned, you are not at the mercy of invisible forces. You do not need everything to be happy. You will not be destroyed by loss. Peace is within your reach. Epicurus's medicine is not spiritual escapism, it's radical realism, a return to nature, to reason, to friendship, to enough. Man is not worried by real problems so much as by his imagined anxieties about real problems. Epictetus. The Tetrapharmakos is not a shield against suffering.
It is a compass, a guide back to equilibrium when the storms of life shake us. In a world of noise, Epicurus offers clarity. In an age of complexity, he offers simplicity. In a culture of consumption, he offers contentment. This is his enduring legacy, the quiet revolution of a soul unafraid. In a world increasingly connected yet profoundly lonely, Epicurus's elevation of friendship as the highest source of joy rings with prophetic clarity. Of all the things which wisdom provides to make us entirely happy, much the greatest is the possession of friendship. Epicurus. To Epicurus, friendship was not a luxury. It was essential medicine for the soul. In his garden school in Athens, friendship was woven into daily life. Meals were shared, worries were voiced, laughter echoed. This was no elite academy, but a place of radical inclusion. Slaves, women, and foreigners sat at the same table as philosophers. In an age driven by status and hierarchy, this was revolutionary. We should look for someone to eat and drink with before looking for something to eat and drink. Epicurus. Modern psychology confirms his insight. A Harvard study tracking over 75 years of lives found that good relationships were the strongest predictor of long-term happiness. Not money, not fame, not health, just connection. Loneliness kills. It's as powerful as smoking or alcoholism. Robert Waldinger, Harvard Study of Adult Development. Yet our digital era presents a paradox. Hyper-connected and under-related. Friends become followers. Conversations become texts. Belonging becomes algorithmic. We live in public and die in isolation. But Epicurus reminds us, friendship is not convenience. It is a conscious commitment. Without friends, no one would choose to live, though we had all other goods. Aristotle. True friends are those who walk with us in both delight and despair. They reduce fear, amplify joy, and provide a mirror in which to see ourselves more clearly. A friend is another self, Cicero. In Epicurus's eyes, such bonds were not utilitarian, they were sacred. Even more important than romantic love or biological kinship, friendship was a chosen kinship of souls. In our search for well-being, perhaps instead of asking, "How can I be happier?" we should ask, "Whose well-being am I investing in today?" Epicurus lived simply, not out of ascetic denial, but out of clarity. He knew what he needed, and, perhaps more importantly, what he didn't. If you wish to be rich, be content with little. Epicurus. He viewed natural and necessary desires, such as for food, shelter, and friendship, as healthy and easy to satisfy. But vain desires, like luxury, fame, and power, only create craving and distress. Nothing is enough for the man to whom enough is too little. Epicurus. This insight forms the philosophical core of modern minimalism, a lifestyle trend that strips away the inessential in search of meaning. Figures like Henry David Thoreau, who sought solitude at Walden Pond, echo the Epicurean spirit. Our life is frittered away by detail. Simplify, simplify. Thoreau. Today, the clutter is no longer just physical.
It's digital, emotional, mental. We are drowning in data, decisions, and distractions. And yet we chase more gadgets, more goals, more likes. Too many people spend money they haven't earned to buy things they don't want to impress people they don't like. Will Rogers. Epicurus would call this the disease of desire, the illusion that happiness lies in accumulation. But in letting go, we create space. Modern research in positive psychology shows that experiential simplicity, time in nature, meaningful conversation, mindful presence, correlates strongly with reported well-being. Even Marie Kondo's philosophy of decluttering has roots in this deeper wisdom. Keep only what sparks joy. The question is no longer, what do I want? But what am I willing to need? Epicurus isn't telling us to live in poverty. He is asking us to disentangle joy from consumption and remind ourselves that the best things in life, peace, thought, presence, require no credit card. Not all pleasures are equal. Epicurus taught us to analyze desire, not to suppress it blindly, but to understand its anatomy. He divided desires into 3 types. 1. Natural and necessary, food, shelter, and friendship. 2. Natural but not necessary, luxury foods, sex. And 3. Neither natural nor necessary, power, wealth, and fame. True happiness, he argued, lies in fulfilling the first, moderating the second, and avoiding the third. The misfortune of the wise is better than the prosperity of the fool. Epicurus. This is not Puritanism. It's psychological engineering. If your joy depends on what is rare, you will be anxious. If it rests on what is simple, you are free. Modern advertising, however, thrives on confusion. It converts wants into needs and teaches us that dopamine equals happiness. But Epicurus knew the difference. Pleasure is not in continual drinking and dancing, nor in sexual pleasures, but in the calm state of the soul. Epicurus. Entered delayed gratification, a concept now championed in self-discipline research. Studies like the famous marshmallow experiment show that those who can resist short-term pleasures often gain greater long-term satisfaction. The Stoics agreed. Seneca said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." But Epicurus was more gentle. He allowed for pleasure, but insisted it be examined. Does this bring lasting joy, or is it a sugar high followed by despair? Freedom is the greatest fruit of self-sufficiency. Epicurus. By curating our desires, we do not become ascetics. We become connoisseurs of joy. And discipline becomes not repression, but freedom. To Epicurus, happiness was not a mere mental state. It was embodied, woven into the fabric of both body and soul. He saw no radical split between them. This holistic view prefigures modern biopsychosocial models of health, where the body, mind, and social environment are all seen as co-creators of well-being. The body cries out not to be ignored, but not to be indulged, Epicurus paraphrased. Pain of the body is manageable, and the wise learn to bear it. He famously wrote a letter from his deathbed. "I am suffering such pains in the bladder and bowels that nothing can exceed them. Yet this is all balanced by the joy which I derive from remembering our past conversations." This isn't denial, it's reframing, a technique now used in cognitive behavioral therapy to manage chronic pain, anxiety, and depression. Happiness depends upon ourselves, Aristotle. Epicurus's attention to bodily pleasures like warmth, food, and rest makes his philosophy more grounded than some ascetic paths. He invites us to be sensual, but not addicted, appreciative, but not dependent. Modern movements in body positivity, somatic therapy, and mindful eating echo this view. They affirm that the body is not a cage nor a temple, but a garden to be tended with joy and awareness. We are not minds trapped in flesh. We are whole beings, and happiness must be approached holistically.
In the midst of political turmoil, urban chaos, and philosophical dogma, Epicurus created a garden. Not just a physical space, but a metaphor for a life of peace, learning, and self-reflection. Philosophy that does not heal the soul is no better than medicine that does not cure the body. Epicurus. The garden was more than a retreat. It was a revolt against ambition, against the idea that we must climb, conquer, or dominate in order to matter. Instead, Epicurus invited us to retreat into leisure, not laziness, but liberating contemplation. To read, to walk, to dialogue, to reflect. The unexamined life is not worth living, Socrates. But where Socrates challenged the Athenian square, Epicurus nurtured the private life, and in that he inspired a quieter revolution, the reclamation of time. In today's productivity-obsessed culture, leisure is almost sinful. Even rest must be optimized. We speak of hustle and grind as virtues. Epicurus would shake his head. Beware the barrenness of a busy life, Socrates. Leisure is not absence of action, it is the presence of attention. And it is in these moments, walking at sunset, sharing tea, journaling under a tree, that the soul breathes. Modern studies confirm this. Downtime boosts creativity, rest improves memory, and solitude enhances emotional regulation. All of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. Blaise Pascal. Epicurus's garden is more relevant than ever. It reminds us that fulfillment comes not from running faster, but from stopping long enough to know what we're running from. The ancient schools of Epicureanism and Stoicism often stood at philosophical odds. Both aimed for tranquility, but their methods diverged. Epicurus believed tranquility, ataraxia, arose from pleasure through the absence of pain and fear. The Stoics sought aponia, freedom from emotional disturbance through virtue and rational detachment. Pleasure is the beginning and the end of a blessed life. Epicurus. Happiness is not in pleasure, but in virtue. Seneca. To the Stoics, nature governs all. Our suffering arises not from events, but from our judgments of them. If we change our perspective, we gain freedom. As Epictetus taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Epicurus agreed in part, but believed avoidance of pain, not just virtuous endurance, was more realistic for the average person. He asked not for greatness, but for gentle contentment. We must not spoil the enjoyment we had by falsely believing that some greater joy lies ahead. Epicurus. To the Epicureans, the Stoics were too stern. To the Stoics, the Epicureans, too soft. But in reality, both philosophies offer tools to heal the human soul. In modern psychology, Stoicism aligns closely with cognitive behavioral therapy, challenging thoughts to change behavior. Epicureanism mirrors acceptance and commitment therapy, mindfulness, and minimalist approaches. One emphasizes resilience through reason, the other happiness through simplicity. Freedom is secured not by the fulfilling of men's desires, but by the removal of desire. Marcus Aurelius. Today, we may not need to choose sides. The Stoics can help us stand firm in chaos, while the Epicureans help us build peace in quietness. Both are responses to the same condition, the aching restlessness of being human. Anxiety, depression, and burnout have become defining features of the 21st century. Despite unprecedented material wealth, rates of psychological distress continue to soar. Here, Epicurus speaks across millennia with uncanny relevance. He treated philosophy as medicine for the soul, not an academic exercise. His approach, fearless inquiry, simple living, community, and emotional clarity, forms the backbone of many modern therapeutic approaches. We must exercise ourselves in the things which bring happiness, since if that be present, we have everything, and if that be absent, all our actions are directed towards attaining it. Epicurus. Modern positive psychology echoes this focus, not merely treating mental illness, but cultivating mental health through gratitude, contentment, and connection. Studies show that gratitude practices boost happiness and reduce depression. Mindfulness meditation increases emotional regulation.
Strong social ties are more predictive of long-term happiness than wealth or fame. Epicurus knew this centuries ago. The wealth required by nature is limited and is easy to procure, but the wealth required by vain ideals extends to infinity. Epicurus. Today, mindfulness apps like Headspace and Calm reach millions. Digital minimalism, popularized by Cal Newport, urges tech users to reduce screen time and reclaim presence. These movements are modern echoes of the garden, not only philosophical but psychological sanctuaries. As Carl Jung observed, modern man does not find God because he does not look low enough. In an age that prizes stimulation, Epicurus teaches calmness. In a culture of consumption, he teaches sufficiency. In the face of fear, he teaches clear thought. He would not offer pills, he would offer peace. And it starts with understanding what really matters.
Epicurus believed fear was the root of all suffering. Today, fear has become currency. News cycles are optimized for anxiety. Algorithms push outrage. Media monetizes trauma. We live in a culture of chronic alertness, not because the world is more dangerous, but because fear pays attention. Nothing in life is to be feared. It is only to be understood. Marie Curie. Epicurus wrote, "Empty is the argument of the philosopher which does not relieve any human suffering." To that end, he implored us to understand nature, not myth, to examine cause, not react to rumor, to question appearances. It is not death or pain that is to be dreaded, but the fear of pain or death. Epictetus. Modern media triggers this dread constantly. Epidemics, war, recession. It's not that these are illusions, but they are amplified and distorted, leading to existential paralysis. Mindfulness, now recommended by psychologists, becomes not luxury, but survival. When the mind is clear, joy arises naturally. Thich Nhat Hanh. Even the Stoics warned against overexposure to negative stimuli. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Seneca. The Epicurean way is not denial. It is disciplined attention. Choose what you consume. Choose when to engage. Choose your inner climate. This is not just digital hygiene. It's philosophical resistance. We live in an age where abundance breeds anxiety. The more we have, the more we fear losing it. Epicurus saw this clearly. Nothing satisfies the man who is not satisfied with a little. His solution was elegant: friendship over fame, calm over chaos, simplicity over status. He replaced accumulation with attention. He chose the garden over the marketplace. Today, we are bombarded by options. From toothpaste brands to career paths, social overload fuels stress and regret. Social media intensifies this with constant comparison. Comparison is the thief of joy. Theodore Roosevelt. Epicurus would say, "Why are you comparing yourself to someone who may not even be happy? Instead, compare yourself to your own peace of mind yesterday." The antidote to consumerism is community, deep conversations, shared meals, moments of vulnerability. We don't need more stuff, we need more soul. Thomas More. Epicurus didn't build an empire, he built a circle. And from that circle, happiness radiated. Not what we have, but what we enjoy constitutes our abundance. Epicurus. Epicureanism is not dead. It is being reborn quietly in living rooms, retreats, and meditation cushions around the world. When we turn off notifications, choose silence, plant herbs, call a friend, or sit with our thoughts, we are living the Epicurean way. The rise of mindfulness apps, digital minimalism, mental health awareness, simplicity movements all reflect a yearning for ataraxia in the modern soul.
The greatest wealth is to live content with little. Plato. Epicurus's image was slandered for centuries, called a hedonist, a glutton, a denier of God. But history is correcting itself. Scholars, therapists, and thinkers now recognize that his real message was one of mental clarity, ethical living, and deep contentment. His philosophy is not about sensual indulgence. It is about radical presence. To be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment. Ralph Waldo Emerson. Epicurus invites us to step off the treadmill, not into laziness, but into awareness. He asks us to rediscover what we already know deep down, that peace is better than prestige, that presence is better than performance, that being is better than having, and perhaps most importantly, death is nothing to us, because once we cease fearing the end, we begin truly to live.